It reportedly started with a single urgent call from a private London medical clinic, serious enough to immediately clear senior staff from the corridor outside Princess Catherine's private meeting room. What followed inside was described as tense and unusually quiet. When Catherine finally emerged, observers noted a striking change in her demeanor, pale, composed on the surface, but visibly shaken underneath. For months, official channels had maintained that her absence from public duties was part of a routine recovery process. However, according to individuals close to the situation, a newly surfaced medical opinion is said to have challenged that narrative, suggesting the reality was more complex than what had been publicly shared. Shortly after, what insiders describe as a controlled silence began forming around Kensington Palace. Staff were reportedly instructed to avoid speculation, limit internal discussion, and ensure that any scheduling changes were cleared through senior communications teams. The atmosphere shifted noticeably, becoming more restricted and cautious than usual. Catherine, long seen as a symbol of composure and stability, was increasingly kept out of public view, with privacy measures tightening around her daily life. At the same time, Prince William's public and private schedule appeared to change without clear explanation. Some engagements were reduced or adjusted, and those close to him reportedly noticed a heightened seriousness in his tone and decisions. What had once been seen as a standard recovery story slowly began to feel more uncertain behind palace walls, as quiet concern started to replace earlier reassurance. Inside Kensington Palace, reports suggest a private medical consultation took place involving Catherine, Prince William, and a small group of trusted advisors. The meeting was described as highly sensitive, immediately shifting the tone of discussions surrounding her recovery. While exact details remain unconfirmed and closely guarded, sources claim the message delivered during that consultation was more complicated than earlier public statements had implied. It reportedly indicated that Catherine's recovery process may involve unexpected complications connected to her prior health challenges, requiring greater caution than initially assumed. Following this, internal communication within the palace reportedly became more controlled. Staff were reminded to maintain strict confidentiality, avoid unofficial commentary, and ensure all public-facing information followed approved guidance. The level of caution, according to insiders, felt unusually strict even by royal standards. Prince William's response was described as deeply protective. His schedule allegedly became more restricted, with fewer public appearances and shorter engagements. Meetings were rescheduled or adjusted, and his focus appeared increasingly centered on private family matters rather than ceremonial duties. Those observing from within the royal environment reportedly described a growing sense of pressure, less about public optics and more about managing uncertainty behind closed doors. While official messaging continued to emphasize stability, the internal atmosphere was said to be far more cautious, with decisions increasingly influenced by medical guidance and family priorities rather than tradition alone. As time passed, the gap between official statements and public curiosity began to widen. While the palace continued releasing carefully worded updates emphasizing steady recovery and privacy, speculation outside its walls grew steadily louder. Each missing appearance or adjusted schedule added to public uncertainty rather than easing it. According to reports from individuals familiar with internal discussions, communication teams faced increasing difficulty maintaining a consistent narrative. The strategy of limited disclosure, once intended to reduce attention, appeared instead to intensify scrutiny. Every statement was analyzed, every delay questioned, and every absence closely tracked. Inside royal circles, concern reportedly shifted from managing curiosity to managing credibility. Some advisors allegedly argued for clearer communication to reduce speculation, while others warned that revealing too much could compromise privacy and intensify pressure on Catherine during recovery. This disagreement created internal tension over how best to proceed. At the same time, Prince William was said to be tightening access around his family life, limiting unnecessary briefings and reducing the number of people involved in sensitive updates. While some viewed this as secrecy, others interpreted it as an attempt to create stability in an increasingly uncertain environment. Eventually, whispers emerged of a significant medical assessment delivered to senior figures, one described as serious enough to reshape expectations entirely. Though unconfirmed, it was said to emphasize that recovery would require more time and caution than originally anticipated. This development reportedly marked a turning point, intensifying both internal concern and external speculation about the true state of events. As speculation reached its peak, attention turned not only to Catherine's condition, but also to the broader implications for the monarchy itself. With King Charles also facing health challenges, concerns reportedly grew about the overall resilience of the royal structure and its ability to maintain stability under simultaneous pressure. Prince William, according to insiders, found himself balancing intense personal responsibility with constitutional expectation. While publicly continuing his duties, he was also said to be prioritizing his family's well-being, particularly Catherine's recovery, and the emotional stability of their children. Within the household, efforts were reportedly made to shield Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis from the surrounding tension. Maintaining normality for them became a key focus, even as external attention intensified. However, this protective approach also fueled further speculation about the seriousness of the situation. Behind palace doors, advisors were allegedly forced to confront difficult questions about future planning, public communication, and long-term workload adjustments within the royal family. The combination of health concerns and heightened public scrutiny created an atmosphere of uncertainty not seen in years. Ultimately, the situation highlighted a deeper challenge for the monarchy, balancing transparency with privacy in an age where silence often generates more questions than answers. Catherine's absence became more than a personal matter. It evolved into a broader reflection on trust, perception, and the modern expectations placed upon the royal institution. In the weeks that followed, the atmosphere inside royal circles reportedly grew even more restrained. Public appearances continued in a limited form, but each one appeared carefully measured, almost choreographed, as if every detail was being weighed against an unseen medical backdrop. According to insiders, the challenge was no longer just about managing public expectations. It had become about maintaining balance between recovery needs and institutional demands. Catherine's condition, while still kept private, was increasingly seen as a central factor influencing wider royal planning. Behind closed doors, discussions allegedly shifted toward long-term restructuring of duties. Rather than expecting a quick return to full public life, advisors were said to be preparing for a more gradual and flexible approach. This included contingency planning for events, appearances, and responsibilities that Catherine would normally have undertaken. Prince William's role during this period reportedly became even more demanding. While continuing to represent the monarchy publicly, he was also said to be deeply involved in private decision-making related to Catherine's recovery and family stability. Those close to the situation described him as carrying multiple pressures at once, duty to the crown on one side and personal responsibility on the other. At the same time, palace communication teams were reportedly working under heightened sensitivity. Every statement required careful wording designed to maintain reassurance without overexposure. Yet despite these efforts, speculation continued to grow, suggesting that silence alone was no longer enough to contain public curiosity. As uncertainty persisted, attention increasingly turned toward the internal strain within the monarchy's structure. With multiple senior figures facing health-related challenges or reduced public activity, questions reportedly began to emerge about how the institution would maintain its pace and visibility in the long term. Insiders suggest that advisors were quietly reviewing operational continuity plans, not as a sign of crisis but as a precautionary measure. These discussions reportedly included how responsibilities might be redistributed if certain members required extended periods of recovery or reduced engagement. Catherine's role in particular was described as emotionally significant within these conversations. She had become a central figure in public perception of the monarchy's future stability. As a result, any uncertainty surrounding her availability carried broader implications beyond her individual duties. Prince William was allegedly at the center of these discussions, balancing institutional expectations with personal boundaries. While he remained committed to his responsibilities, sources claim he was also firm in prioritizing Catherine's health above external pressure. This stance reportedly created both respect and tension within different levels of royal administration. Meanwhile, public reaction continued to evolve. What began as concern reportedly transformed into sustained curiosity, with media outlets and commentators closely analyzing every appearance and absence. Despite repeated official assurances of stability, the lack of detailed updates allowed speculation to persist and multiply across global platforms. The monarchy, long accustomed to controlling its narrative, now faced a modern communication environment where gaps in information were quickly filled by outside interpretation, accurate or not. Eventually, the situation reportedly reached a point where internal and external pressures converged more sharply than before. According to palace-linked accounts, a renewed medical review was presented within a restricted setting, reinforcing that Catherine's recovery required continued caution and time away from full public duties. While not publicly confirmed in detail, this development was said to have prompted a shift in internal expectations. Rather than anticipating a defined return timeline, advisors began focusing on adaptable planning, allowing space for recovery without fixed public commitments. Prince William's response during this period was described as unwaveringly protective. Sources suggest he continued to limit unnecessary exposure of family matters, maintaining a firm boundary between private recovery and public duty. His approach, while sometimes interpreted as secrecy, was also seen by others as a deliberate effort to preserve dignity and reduce pressure. At the same time, Catherine herself was reportedly focused on maintaining emotional stability and family routine. According to those close to the situation, her priorities remained centered on her children and gradual recovery, rather than public expectations or timelines. Despite the uncertainty, public sentiment toward the couple reportedly remained largely sympathetic. Many observers viewed their handling of the situation as deeply human, shaped not by protocol alone but by personal reality behind the formal image of monarchy. As discussions continued behind palace doors, one underlying truth reportedly became more apparent to those involved. The modern monarchy was no longer only managing tradition or image. It was navigating an era where privacy, health, and public expectation were constantly in tension, and every silence carried meaning of its own.